Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Let's Talk Business South Carolina. I am your host, Rick Jenkins, and now it is time for our featured guest. And that featured guest, I have talked to him a time or two before on these kinds of things. I've known him for quite some time. Talking a really knowledgeable guy here, Dave Edwards. Dave is the president and CEO at the Greenville Spartanburg Airport District. Basically, he is the big boss at GSP International Airport. Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Rick. Great to be here.
It is good to have you here. I haven't talked to you in a while. I mean, it's been several months or so. You've been doing okay?
Been doing great. Things are busy, both at work and at home. So I think things are moving fast.
That's right. They're always busy at the airport, and I want to get into all of that in a second. But I want to start with you for a minute before we get into business stuff. I have said this to you before, and we talked about this in a prior interview I did with you some time ago. You knew what you wanted to do from an early age. You got a degree in airport what?
Aviation management.
Aviation management. I had it there. Aviation management. You did that right from the beginning. How did you know you wanted to do what you're doing?
Well, a little bit of it was I grew up around aviation, private aviation. My father was a pilot, flew for fun. So I spent some time around it for a while. Wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do when I got older, but I went off and did a little 2-week seminar at a institution called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And when I came back from that 2 weeks, I was 17 years old, and I came back and I said, this is what I'm going to do. Now, originally I was going to fly. I wanted to become a commercial airline pilot.
Right. Did you ever get your license?
I do have a private pilot, multi-engine rated, but never flew commercially.
Okay.
I got into the industry, or I should say, when I was going to school back in 1979, 1980, the bottom fell out on the airline industry after the deregulation of the industry, and pilots with 10 and 15 and 20,000 hours of time were getting furloughed. And I said to myself, do I really want to graduate here in a couple of years and not probably be able to get a job, or do I want to do something different? And that's when I switched to aviation management.
Right. Do you fly, though?
I haven't flown as pilot in command in quite some time. It's been probably 20 plus years since I've done that. Well,
pilots have to go back and
pilot's kind of like a Marine. You know, once a Marine, always a Marine. And when it comes to having a pilot's license, you never lose your license technically,
right?
But you have to become current. So I'd have to go back and get a new medical, do a little currency training, and then I'd get back in the cockpit.
All right. Well, one day when you retire, might you do something like that or no?
Well, my girls, I have 2 girls. One lives in Alexandria, Virginia, the other down in Gainesville, Florida. They are trying to encourage me to get current again and buy a little share in an airplane so I can come visit more often.
Oh, of course.
Those grandbabies, you got to be there for the grandbabies.
So. That's right. Okay, good stuff. All right, well, Dave, thanks for sharing, but let's talk business now.
Sure.
It wasn't too long ago that the airport got some really good news. I mean, actually, how long has it been? It's 2022 when you won the awards. Mm-hmm. How long ago was that? When did that occur?
Well, it was 2020. We won in 2022.
Okay.
Right? And we had previously won in 2020.
Okay. All right. So what we're talking about, folks, is every year the Airport Council International, ACI, hands out Airport Service Quality Awards. And Dave and his folks just decided they were going to win everything that there was to win, basically, because this is what they went here. Let me read through it. It's a lot of stuff. You were named the world's best airport, basically small airport.
In our class, that's correct.
In the class, right, as judged by your customers. Best airport in North America, again, for the size. Airport with the most dedicated staff. Easiest airport journey, which I love. Cleanest airport, which is no surprise to anyone who goes to GSP. And, of course, the most enjoyable airport in North America for your size. Did anyone else win anything?
Well, they were runners-up.
Okay, right. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's a testament to the team. And when I say that, that's not just the airport district team, the employees that I oversee directly. It really is the entire airport team, which includes our airline tenants, our rental car tenants, our food and beverage and retail operators, air traffic control and the like, because we can't do this all on our own. We have to have all of those other entities to ensure the success occurs that we want to have. And I'm just thankful that we're all pulling in the same direction and want to deliver the best-in-class customer service.
Right. Well, congratulations on it again. Huge honor, to win all of those awards. How many awards, if you could have won them all, how many would that have been?
I think there would have been only a couple of others that were not on the list, and I don't recall what those are.
Okay, because they're not important.
Yeah, they weren't as important as the ones that we have.
That's right. That's right. Okay, let's move on. You got a few capital development projects in the works. Actually, you got several. Let's hear about it. Tell me.
Yeah, so a few things that we have going on. Right now, probably the biggest one and that's most visible to folks is a project called TRIP, which is our roadway improvement project. And it will be changing the entire front curb of the airport. One will be extending the front curb to create a little bit more length in the curb, but we'll be going from what now is a 3 lanes on the inside and 3 lanes on the outside to 4 lanes on the inside and 2 lanes on the outside. So we'll be completely tearing out the center median strip that's there and really rebuilding that all the way across. In addition, we will take all of the curb, the actual curb level there, and we'll have what we call a seamless or a flat curb. So folks won't have to worry about stepping over a curb with their bags or any of that right at the curb front. And in addition to that, we're putting in 2 new roundabouts. One on the entrance side and one on the exit side. And we'll also have, we've already put in a slip lane that as you come into the airport, you'll actually, instead of, when you want to come to the curb in the future, instead of coming straight through as you do now off of Aviation Parkway, once you hit that stop sign and you drive through and you'll come up beside the B garage, that's what happens today, you'll actually take a right on this slip road and you'll go down past the B garage, and then the new road into the airport will be to the left. And that will give you an opportunity to take advantage of that extended curb front that we're going to build for drop-off and pickup.
Let me make sure I got this right. So right now you got 3 lanes and 3 lanes,
That's
inside
correct.
and out, right? So you're not going to widen. Well, it'd be hard to widen because you've got the parking garage there. So you're not going to widen. You're just going to go 4 and 2 instead of 3 and 3. And what does that accomplish?
What it helps us on the inside in particular is private vehicle access will be on those 4 inside lanes. We'll have 2 loading and unloading lanes. And then we'll have what we'll call a maneuvering lane to allow people to get in and out easily. And then the last lane on the outside of those 4 will be a through lane. And then we will move all of our commercial traffic onto the 2 outboard lanes. One will be a loading, unloading, and the other will be a through lane.
I got you. All right, so that takes care of that. But now let's go back to the circles. Where's that going to occur?
So as you come inbound on Aviation Parkway,
coming off the interstate,
you'll hit the main roundabout, the new one that we just put in a few years ago. You'll come past that all the way to GSP Drive.
Yes.
So it's where you stop now before you cross over to go into the terminal. There'll be a roundabout there. And then on the exit side, there'll also be a roundabout put in place as well, basically on the next lane over, but that's exiting. So we have actually 2 exit locations today. You can drive all the way to the end of the curb and exit, or you can drive about 3/4 of the way down the curb and exit right in front of the A garage.
Got it. So as you're approaching, the B's on the right?
That's correct.
And the A's on the left. Yes. So as you're approaching it, there's going to be a circle before the B, and as you're coming out, a circle after the A.
All right.
I got it?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And when might this occur?
Project's underway now and should be completed by the end of 2025, or I'll say for sure, or say early 25. Take that back. So we should be pretty well wrapped up by the end of 2024, early 25.
I would guess, though, that's a lot of headaches for the next year and a half, though. People coming, are you going to route them around in some fashion?
We are. The maintenance of traffic is a big issue with these projects. It's one of the reasons, we had some complaints over this. We closed Stevens Road, which used to connect Brockman McClyman from the east side into GSP Drive, and we closed that road in particular for this project and taking us out in the future because we were having a lot of through traffic that was not destined for the airport, just utilizing the airport as a conduit to get over to State Road 14. And there's no way we could have handled that traffic coming through the airport with this project because we're shutting down lanes and opening lanes down to single lanes at times. So it is it's one of those projects that's pretty invasive. Fortunately, to date, our passengers, our customers have been extremely gracious in being willing to accommodate some of the disruption that's going on right now.
Well, I'm sure you got a whole lot of other things going on as well as we look into the future. You've got a 20-year plan, right? What might we see as we look down the road?
Well, there's lots of stuff on that horizon. Another project that we are getting started at the first of the year. It is started now. Hopefully, we'll go into construction at the first of the year. Is a new parking garage C and a consolidated rental car facility. So that'll be about a 1,500 space facility in total, 750 dedicated spaces dedicated to public parking, 750 dedicated to rental car.
Let me make sure I got it, Dave. I'm sorry. So right now it's in A.
That's
and
correct.
it's going to move out of A, and then that will just be complete parking.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And, that's projects, once we go under construction, is about a 2-year project. So we'll finish that up sometime in probably early to mid 2026. Some of the other major projects that we see coming down the pike, we have terminal expansion over that 20-year period. Additional 5 to 6 gates on Concourse B, a second bag claim on the north side, so similar to what we have down on the south side today. We'll put another one of those bag claims on the north side. We have some office expansion, frankly, for the district as well, because we're running out of space based on our own growth. We have a lot of utility work to do over that period of time. Aging infrastructure at the airport. Airport was built in 1962, so water lines and things like that are coming around for replacement. So we're going to be working on some of that core infrastructure. In 2025-ish, we have a runway rehabilitation project to go out there on our single runway and completely mill up the current asphalt pavement and repave that. That's about a $25 million project in and of itself. So when you look out in the future, new cargo facilities and warehouses and new facilities for our own staff, our maintenance staff going forward. So it doesn't seem to end, Rick. I mean, it's which is a great problem to have. It's, as I always talk about the airport, and when we talk about growth and demand and needs, well, we're just a reflection of the Upstate and what's happening in the Upstate. And when you look at the Upstate's projections for population growth being 40-ish% by 2040 over the next 17 years, with another 250 to 300,000 people added to our population base just in Greenville County, and that doesn't even take into account, Spartanburg County and Anderson, because we have a 10-county service area. We consider, that we actually provide air service to the 10-county Upstate, and as a result, I think we just need to keep up.
Dave, I should have asked you this when we very first started, but how is business now compared to pre-COVID? So COVID hits in March of 2020. There was a while there where we all just said, well, let's just twiddle our thumbs, right? I mean, we don't know what to do. And you all, of course, took a huge hit, and then you started coming back up. But in Q1 of 2020, before COVID hit, what does business today look like compared to then?
We are really back. And that just happened recently. So, when we look back to that 2019, 2020 timeframe, we were going gangbusters at the airport. I think we had about 23 straight months of growth. January and February of 2020, we grew in the high single-digit range, 8 to 9% month over month, year over year. So we were set up for a banner 2020. And of course, as you just alluded to, COVID hit, things tanked. We went to 4% of our traffic volume in April of 2020 and have been climbing out since. In May or June of 2020, we did a forecast to try to project when we thought we might be back to our 2019, 2020 numbers. Ironically, we said that year was going to be 2024. And we're hitting it already. I'm going to say we're hitting it in our fiscal year 2024, which started July 1st here of 2023. So we're not comparing anymore to 2019 because we're saying we're back. So now going forward, we're looking ahead and just know that we're on a continued growth trend. Airline seat capacity is back for us. Not again quite to that 2019 level, but we're seeing even higher load factors on those flights. And as we move into the rest of the fall, we see increased seat capacity continuing to come, which bodes very well for us.
Lately, COVID has been rearing its head again just a little bit. Has there been any change in masking requirements, or do you foresee any?
There has been no change to date. I do not see a federal mandate coming for that. I do see some folks taking some precautions already and donning some masks when they're traveling through the airport.
But that's a personal decision.
That's an individual decision. That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so nothing's coming from your all's
Not
perspective.
that we're aware of. No.
Okay. Good. Wasn't too long ago that you added another a discount airline service, Avelo Airlines. Is that correct? And they're going nonstop to Orlando down to Disney World, and
They're doing
correct?
well.
How's that doing?
They're doing well. An unknown brand, obviously, for the region here. Nobody really knew much about Avelo. I'm not going to say we knew a whole lot about Avelo, aside from them starting up a few years ago. I would say early out of the gate, it's interesting. Every time we start something new out of the airport, and it really doesn't matter whether it's air service, it could be the MAG Escape Lounge, our VIP lounge.
Right.
We take usually 60 to 90 days for it to spool up and for people to catch on. And that's really what happened with Avelo. So they started back in June. We've really seen some momentum pick up with them over the last 60 days or so. They fly, as you mentioned, to Orlando. They fly to Tweed New Haven Airport up in Connecticut, and they're also flying to Wilmington, Delaware. And believe it or not, the best route out of those three that I just mentioned is the Tweed New Haven route up to Connecticut. And I think it gives people that might be trying to get into that Northeast Corridor area that don't necessarily need to go into New York. They can overfly that on Avelo and get up into Connecticut and get to the places they need to go.
So when you say it's the best one, does that mean it is the most, I'm sorry for not understanding the lingo, it's the most occupied?
I would say yes. I would say overall it has performed the best, both in ridership.
Yeah, ridership, there you go.
And from a fare perspective for them. So, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I would have just assumed it would have been Orlando for obvious reasons. You taught me. Okay, let's talk about air cargo service. You recently received a grant. I'm looking here to make sure I got it right. $5.2 million to support infrastructure improvements. And you've got some matching funds there. I think altogether we're talking about $8.5 million. Number one, where did it come from? And number two, what's it going to be used for?
Sure. Well, it's actually a project we're almost finished with, believe it or not. So this was an expansion of our cargo apron that we built back in 2019. So we had invested about, at that time, $31 million in a cargo apron and a cargo building in order to help facilitate the growth of air cargo, in particular international air cargo, in and out of GSP. We grew so rapidly during COVID that we just were running out of space. So we needed to get another project in play that would allow us to handle more aircraft, which meant an expansion of that cargo apron. So we designed that. Is basically a doubling the size. So the original cargo apron could handle three 747-800 aircraft, and this will add another three positions on the other side to accommodate that size aircraft again. And it's, as I mentioned, just about wrapping up. We did seek some federal dollars and assistance for that. So the $5.3 million grant you mentioned is from the EDA, Economic Development Agency, and the ACOG here, the Appalachian Council of Governments, helped us secure that grant and are helping us with the management of that as well through the process. The interesting thing was, you mentioned that $8.5 million. That was the original cost estimate for the project, which was estimated prior to COVID. When we actually pulled the trigger on construction, it ended up being a $16 million project. And so double what we originally estimated. And so we did receive the $5.3 million in grant funding and are getting that money reimbursed as we have our expenditures. And then we needed to go self-fund the balance in order to bring that project to fruition. So that's what we need to do.
So we're talking, you need an extra $10, $11 million.
Right.
And how's that coming?
It's gone fine. I mean, we've got it. We did count on some other federal grant money from what we call the Airport Improvement Program, which comes out of the Federal Aviation Administration. And it looks like those dollars are going to come through. That's going to be about another $4.3 million. So we'll end up with having about half of the dollars that we needed to fund the project come through grants, and the other half is going to come from our cash resources.
Okay. Let's talk, I never stopped to think until I had conversations with you about this over the years. I never stopped to think about the economic development impact that an airport has on the communities that it serves. Of course, it's logical and it makes perfect sense, but I suppose I just never really stopped to think about it. Give us an idea of what that economic impact is from GSP.
Sure, and I'm going to take us back in a little bit of time.
Okay.
We'll do a quick time warp here,
right,
because I think it can give listeners and viewers the perspective of what growth at the airport means for economic impact in our community. So when I arrived at GSP in 2009, we were at about 600,000 or 700,000 enplanements, boardings, total passengers of around 1.2, 1.3 million. Our economic impact at that time was estimated at about 377 million. Fast forward that to 2012, we redid our economic impact study. Southwest Airlines had come in 2011. We had grown significantly. We were up around 1.8 million total passengers in round numbers. Our economic impact grew to 817 million. So more than double, right, during that time.
Yep. And that was from what year to what year?
2009 to 2012.
Got it. All right.
So then we redid the economic impact study again in 2018. Our passenger levels at that point had grown to about 2.5 million from that 1.8 million. In addition, we had started to build some of the cargo business. We had also started to do some land development on the airport for some projects. And the estimated economic impact grew to 2.9 billion. So more than a tripling of economic impact between 2012 and 2018. Ironically, I have engaged that same consultant to come back and update our economic impact study again. That process is, we are in process of that right now, and I'm really excited to see what the results will be. While we haven't necessarily had the passenger growth from the last economic impact study in 2018, and now that we had in previous studies that we had done, we've seen other things develop in a significant way, like cargo and some other land development. So I truly believe we'll probably be definitely north of 3 billion, but I think we'll be north of 3.5, maybe even 4 billion in annual economic impact when this study is completed.
Do you have an idea of what the contribution from the cargo business is?
Yeah, in the last study, it was about 500 million of that initially.
Okay, and, so we're talking, what percent is that? 500 million out of how many billion did you say?
Out of 2.9. So
okay,
it's
all right.
about 20% maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's significant.
Yeah. Well, and again, it will be even much larger this time around. It will, because we just have a much bigger footprint in cargo today versus what we had back then. Again, example would be, I think we were ranked 70th or so in the country in North America in cargo volumes, and I'll say values because that's how they measure it, in product being moved. And now we're up around 22nd in North America. So we've moved significantly up the chain of cargo airports in North America.
For sure. Well, for an organization that provides that much economic impact, I would think that there would be other organizations will be tripping over themselves to give you money to help defray cost and expense. But I have a feeling that's not necessarily the case. It's got to take a lot of money to run an airport and to do all of the things that we've been talking about now. Where does that money come from?
Well, typically, so let me break it into two different places. So from an operating and maintenance standpoint, the things we do every day, the salaries we pay to our staff, and just the ongoing upkeep on the airport, we have to generate all of those revenues from the users of the airport. So, that comes in parking rates. People park, they pay. When you rent a car, the rental car companies for operating on the airport pay the airport a fee. The airlines lease space. We get fees for that, landing fees, et cetera. And so we have to be fully self-sufficient and generate those revenues from the operations on the airport for operating and maintenance expenses. On the capital side, it's slightly different. We do have the ability to secure some federal grants. We talked a little bit about the EDA grant. That's unusual. That's not there all the time. But we do have the Airport Improvement Program that falls under the Federal Aviation Administration. And on an annual basis, we'll get $4.5 million a year in what they call entitlement money. And then in addition to that, we have a passenger facility charge program that's overseen by the federal government, but it's considered local dollars. They're not grant dollars. And that's when you buy a ticket or I buy a ticket on an airplane, you pay this passenger facility charge. That's $4.50. I'm going to keep it simple and just say it's that for now. And we get a piece of that back. Airlines keep a little piece for actually the administration cost of collecting the money and remitting it to the airport. But that, again, equates to another $4.5 million a year for us. So just say that in round numbers is $10 million that we have available. The rest of the dollars, and on average, over the time that I've been at GSP and with the district, we expend about $40 to $60 million a year in capital investment. So if you just say, let's take a round number of $50 million, and at $50 million, if we're getting $10 million through the airport improvement program and $10 million, or $5 million from the airport improvement program and $5 million from the PFCs we collect, total of $10 million, that's 20% of our need. So we have to still fund 80% of the rest of what we're doing from a capital standpoint. And we have gone out to the state. We've had several meetings with our legislative delegation and with the State Aeronautics Commission and said, look, and this was started a couple of years ago, and initially we said, we are the only mode of transportation in the state of South Carolina that receives no state support.
The only mode of transportation, so we're talking rail, right? Everything coming out of the Charleston port and harbor.
Right, and roads. And roads. And bridges, obviously, along with that.
Right.
And we thought, for the reasons that, we've talked about when you look at the economic impacts of airports, and I'll take that for a minute on a broader basis for the state. So in 2018, when I mentioned we did our economic impact study that showed that GSP had a contribution of $2.9 billion, State Aeronautics Commission did an economic impact study at the same time, and it said that the commercial service airports, which are 6 airports in the state, had an economic impact of almost $16 billion a year. And tax revenue generation to the state, local and state taxes of almost $700 million a year. And so, our collective feeling was, look, we need the state to help us with these very expensive infrastructure projects and reinvest some of those tax dollars that currently are coming from this sector and put them back into infrastructure. And so we started to work on that, had a lot of great discussions. 2 years ago, we were very successful in receiving a one-time non-recurring piece of funding, $50 million, which was split amongst the 6 commercial service airports. Out of that, GSP got about $8.9 or $9 million, which was great. This last year, we were chasing another $50 million, and unfortunately, right at the end, due to some of the budget discussions, that got cut from $50 million down to $20 million. So now we're dividing $20 million. And the reality is, for GSP, and I won't speak for all of the other airports, we believe that we really need the state to fund us at about $10 or $15 million a year in order to really deliver on the capital projects that need to be done at GSP that will allow us to grow the airport, to meet the needs of the Upstate moving forward on the commercial service side, both from a passenger and a cargo perspective. And with that, the state's going to continue to benefit from that increased economic impact and tax revenue. And so when we look at it, you could say even if we could get 10% of the tax revenue, that would be $70 million a year for commercial service airports. And that would probably be pretty close to covering the need, somewhere between $70 and $100 million a year in order to fund those major capital projects at airports around the state. Charleston, I don't have their full capital plan, but they have a major terminal expansion need down there. And they're talking about, the need to spend $500 or $600 million themselves on their improvements. So lots of needs out there, never enough money. And some of the things that have even made it tougher is not, as I mentioned with the cargo apron expansion project, we just see increased cost of construction on an ongoing basis. So nothing's getting cheaper. And you see that on one side, and then you couple that with the fact that borrowing rates, if you have to go borrow money, have doubled almost. The ability to do some of these projects with that without additional support from a grant perspective, really from both the state and the federal government, is going to be extremely difficult for airports to achieve.
Is this funding, I'm not going to say lack of funding because you do receive funding from the state, but is this, I'll say minimized funding, is that in some way unique to South Carolina or no?
Well, I would say, 2 years ago when we weren't receiving any dollars, we were the only one of, well, I think in the Southeast, Rick, we might have been the only state, with the exception of Georgia, in the Southeast that did not receive state aviation funding dollars. Florida has a tremendous program. It's $300 million a year plus. They've had that for years. In the last few years, I'd say the last 5 years, North Carolina put in place a program that funds their commercial airports at $75 million. They're going to $125 million. In addition to that, out of ARPA, they received, I think it was about $140 million in some ARPA funding support, which we didn't receive here in South Carolina. Tennessee is now at $85 million for, I think, 5 commercial service airports in Tennessee. So we're seeing our surrounding airports or surrounding states putting programs together that are very significant. And ultimately, with some of that, as with anything, because air service is such a critical component for new business recruitment and retention, right? For businesses to come to locate in places as well as to stay. If we don't stay competitive with our surrounding states, we have the potential to continue to lose new business recruitment here in the state of South Carolina.
So it sounds like, yes, this is somewhat unique to South Carolina in that regard. I would assume you've had many conversations about this at the State House. And what is the response?
Yeah, I think overall we've gotten a good response. I think, in fairness to the legislators, in fairness to those in the State House, the governor and the lieutenant governor, there's lots of budget needs. Yeah. And you have to balance things at the end of the day. But when you look at the return on the investment of $1 in grant funds to what that returns in economic impact, it's huge. There was a study that was done by the Council on Competitiveness, which is a group under the Department of Commerce. And that report showed that for every dollar invested, there's a $3,000 return on that investment. I mean, those are just huge dollars at the end of the day. So I don't think there's a better place that folks could decide to invest money, at least if you're looking at the pure return on those dollars. And we're going to continue to work with our legislators and work with the State House and trying to really put in place recurring funding. It's great to get some dollars, right, but you don't want to have to necessarily go fight for those every year.
You need to know what's coming.
You need to be able to plan.
You got a budget, right?
Well, you just heard. When we talked about, we have a 20-year plan.
Yes.
It's $1 billion over 20 years,
right,
that we have to invest in order to keep pace. And we need to have an idea of how we're going to fund this.
Dave, good stuff as always.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, man.
Thanks so much.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Folks, that is Dave Edwards. He is the CEO and the president at the Greenville Spartanburg GSP International Airport, the Greenville Spartanburg Airport District. And appreciate him joining us. And thank you for joining us on another episode of Let's Talk Business. We will be back again, and so we'll see you the next time. Thanks.